What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another one of Hod's therapy sessions.
All right, so what are we here to talk about today?
All right, so it's my mom's birthday in 30 minutes. So I thought we could talk about just her and just the idea of unconditional love. I think that part specifically I thought was what was worth like sharing because, I feel like not many of us don't sort of acknowledge how important that is in our lives and like appreciate it enough. So
Yeah, so let's start out. Okay, let's know a little bit about your mom.
she's great. I think she's the reason that like I'm successful in my life.
Okay, so why is that?
So I think okay, so maybe I'll take a step back, right? Like Islam talks about how like you're supposed to like heaven is underneath your mom's feet, and I feel like my mom sort of like exemplifies that. And I don't mean that in the sense that like that's what you should do. I just feel like anything that's good in me, my mom. I don't take anything away from my dad. He's the greatest dad ever, but I feel like a lot of the good values I have in myself are because of my mom. And I feel like it's because of what I've seen in my mother, right? So she's a religious woman, she's incredibly sweet, she's incredibly caring. And a lot of things that we do in our life, like me and my brothers, are a direct consequence of like what our mom taught us. And like when I try to do good deeds, it's simply because of the fact that I think about what my mom would have done, right? So I generally owe like my success in my life to my mom. And like one instance is like when I was in high school, I wasn't studying, right? And so I remember like my school thought my grades were too low for me to do like IB. That was like a international baccalaureate. That was like a program that you did in high school. And I remember like my mom and I sat with this counselor, and this counselor like basically like, just embarrassed me and told me that I wasn't like smart enough to do IB. And I remember like we came home and we didn't talk the entire way when we came home. And then my mom was like, I'll be right back. I'm gonna go get some groceries. And she came back like a half hour later. And when she came back, she told me, I went back to the counselor and I told him like, fuck that, you're gonna do IB. And I don't know what it was. And that one we just hugged. And it was sort of just like, yeah, we'll show them sort of deal. And I did IB and I guess I did well. And I got into all these universities, yada, 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 whatever. But like, I feel like that was like the beginning of, it was like two moments I think where like changed my life when I was young. It was that and it was one with my granddad. But that moment I think sort of like helped define like the next step in my life. And I went to Canada for university and then I started doing well relatively. And yeah, I feel like if I wasn't for what my mom did there, I wouldn't have, I don't know, I probably would have been a bum. So thank you, Mom.
You owe your success to her.
I owe my success to my mother. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And then I would say like what something do you feel like she's taught you in life?
I think she's taught me, one of the lessons she's taught me in life is how to be more selfless, right? And I think it comes back to this idea of like unconditional love. So I think I've been like seeing this therapist, right? And like we talk a lot about this idea of like how to care for, if I do start dating again or whatever, I want to be a better partner, right? So we talked about this idea of conditional love. And so that obviously brought up the idea of like loving someone unconditionally. And we realized that, you know, the only people that ever love you unconditionally are your parents, right? And so I think I've learned from her what exactly unconditional love is. There's, you know, because people talk a lot about like you'll die for someone, right? Like, oh, I'll take a bullet for you, or I'd give my life for you. And I feel like a lot of times it's just bullshit. But no, man, like my mom would, like, when she says it, she means it.
Yeah, I agree.
Just that idea that like loving someone no matter what is just this bizarre concept that I realized because of the fact that I see it in my mom, right? The fact that like when I couldn't get a job and I moved to Yellowknife and she would visit Yellowknife twice a year, and then she set up my apartment there, and then she would stay there for months. Or when like I was in London and I fell off my motorbike and broke my hand, and I had to write like the CPA exam, and then she lived with me for months, sort of just helped me study for it. Or like, for example, like even like this place, like she had set all this up, right? So she's always been there, no matter what, right? Like even me trying to be a better Muslim now is a direct consequence of like with the fact my mom like prays and she's always prayed and she gives these lectures and she like has all these like crazy prayers that she does for like hours on end because she wants the best for us. And it's just like, man, like no one does that. And it's crazy like how much we take advantage of that, right? Like me personally, I think that's one of the things I'm trying to do better is be more aware of the fact that like cherish unconditional love more than I have, right? Because it's not gonna, eventually that's not gonna be there, right? And so I feel like just, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Okay, you said cherish unconditional love. How are you going to cherish that?
I feel like, for example, like just saying thank you more, telling her how much I love her more, appreciating her more, right? Like I feel like a lot of these things that we think in my head, at least I think in my head about like how great she is and how wonderful she is and how how much I tell people that like I love my mom, right? And I don't think I tell her enough this, right? And I feel like I need to do a better job just letting her know how much she means to me and how sorry I am for, you know, being a prick sometimes. And, she's always there, man. Like it's crazy that, like sometimes I'll be busy and I won't pick up my phone. There's never a time that she won't pick up my phone, right? And I think that's just the realization, right? That like, why is it that we spend all this time about like doing stupid things or like worrying about people? Like it's crazy that like we'll text like a girlfriend every
Yeah.
morning, right? But we won't text our mother good morning every morning. It's crazy.
I guess it's different for you because you don't live together.
Like with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like my mom lives in Thailand, right?
Yeah.
So we live apart, and so maybe that's. I mean, I don't think it's a great reason, but maybe that's part of the reason I don't necessarily think about how that unconditional love aspect as much. But she's always like, she comes lives with me for a month, and like man, there's things in this house that haven't moved since she's been here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I thank you, mom. Like if it wasn't for you, I don't know who I would be. And like I've talked about like how she helped me with my career, but I feel like I've never actually talked about like how much she did, like how selfless she is, right? Like when I was going through like my like breakup, like I don't know if we can talk about that, but like like a year and a half ago when I was like my relationship was ending or whatever, my mom lost her mother at the same time, like my grandma passed away, and never at that moment did she like. I don't think she took the time to like actually like process her own like mother's death because she was so focused on trying to make my relationship work. She started to put everything to the side, and her mother was like meant everything to her, right? I don't know. I just feel like this unconditional love is like some crazy shit that you need to like just acknowledge and appreciate while it's there. And I feel like a lot of us don't do that. So if anyone ever watches this, like appreciate your mothers. Like if you have someone in your life who loves you unconditionally, like thank them and love them and show them how much they mean to you. And I feel like the biggest lesson I've taken away from like, because I didn't realize how stupid I've been like from that perspective for like I guess until like now. And I think for the last like year, I felt like if my family is a big giant ball, right? I feel like there's like a dent in that ball. And I feel like I'm the reason there's been that dent because I feel like I've been going through so much of my own shit that I haven't actually acknowledged how to take that dent out. And a part of that is the fact that like I haven't considered my mother's feelings, right? So I feel like I need to do a better job just like speaking to my mom, sitting her down and telling her how much I care and how sorry I am for like fucking things up and helping get that dent out. So I'm gonna do that this year.
When did you realize, like, when did you come to all this realization?
I guess just over the past couple of months as I've been trying to get better.
If you could go back in time, like, what would you say to her?
I would say I'm sorry that I was so selfish that I didn't consider how my actions were impacting your feelings. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. How did I didn't tell you sooner that the best parts of me are a result of you. And I'm sorry that I embarrassed you. And I'm sorry that you have to constantly cover up for my flaws.
Has she ever made you feel like that?
No, that's the thing, right? I don't think she ever. It's like she's always been so selfless, right? She's never asked for a thank you. It's just like I can sitting back here, I can see that like I can tell where she's like hid things from me to protect me from how it would affect my feelings, right? And she's just sort of like taking it in.
Obviously, you do regret things, but if you do regret stuff now, like, do you let her know?
Yeah, but I think the difference is like I think I've always been like somewhat self-aware where like I know when I've been an asshole, right? So I'll apologize. But I think the next step is sort of like not be an asshole in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. Like not ever get to that point where you feel like you've been rude to your mother, right? Or you've been selfish, right? To actually appreciate them in that moment.
And do you think this is all coming to you now because you're older? Like obviously when you're younger and you go through it, you're in the moment.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. You think so? Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm older now and wiser, but I wish if I regret one thing, I wish I would have realized it sooner. I feel like so much of my younger years, I was a lot like focused on just like me and like what I wanted and like just having fun. And I feel like I should have been more focused on just like trying to make sure that my parents knew how much I cared and loved for them, right? And I think on my mother's birthday, I realized I've taken you for granted, and I won't do that anymore. I will be better at appreciating you. And I'm sorry I'm truly sorry for embarrassing you.